Ready for 1044, BFS pre-flight uplink loading.
ECL ATC.
Go ahead.
Yeah, are we waiting for 937? Is that where we are?
That's affirmative. Flight, you copied 1044.
PVD OTC.
PVD.
948.
And work.
NTD Houston Flight 212.
Yep.
Copy.
We're looking again from the roof of the VAB from the west and southwest to the clouds that are in the immediate vicinity. And
NTD step 950.
the weather team is looking for any builds in these clouds, because once the clouds begin to have a vertical direction of any consequence, they have the potential to become charged.
Crew members that are going to pressurize their suits and then depress them again. Okay, copy that.
Weather today has tended to trend in our favor, even though the forecast has not been all that favorable. We're watching some showers off to the west that have begun to develop, and it's hoped that they will stay west of our 20 nautical mile area, for which we're the most concerned should there be a return to launch site by Atlantis.
Okay, OTC numbers are the same as the last time I reported them. They're 1475 on the backup, 147 on the gauge, and 0 DPDT. ECL OTC.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hey, we're ready for 940.
That's firm.
OTC, PD.
Yeah, we ready for the fuel cell loaded, Jeff? Step 1064.
Stand by. CDR.
20 seconds remaining before we go into the built-in hold at T-minus 9 minutes.
Cabin vent valves for your checklist. Cabin valve closure is in work.
Counting now down into the hold in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. T-minus 9 minutes and holding.
T-minus 9 minutes and holding. STM-NTD.
This is a 40-minute built-in hold.
Step 1060, let's go ahead and deactivate pad OISD.
We'll go now to Mission Control in Houston to the Johnson Space Center for an update on the readiness of Mission Control to support today's launch. And our ascent commentator, Rob Navius.
Ready for 1064 to adjust fuel cell loads.
Copy, in work.
This is Mission Control Houston at T-minus 9 minutes and holding. Flight controllers belonging to the ascent team have been on console since 8 o'clock this morning, monitoring Atlantis' systems in preparation for its launch to deliver the European Columbus Science Lab to the International Space Station. The ascent team is led by Flight Director Norm Knight, with the help of astronaut Jim Dutton, who is the spacecraft communicator, or Capcom, today. Dutton will be talking directly to the crew during Atlantis' 8.5-minute ride to orbit. He's joined on console by astronaut Terry Virts, who is monitoring weather conditions at the Kennedy Space Center and who is in direct contact with Chief Astronaut Steve Lindsay, flying the shuttle training aircraft around the vicinity of the shuttle landing strip at the Cape, assessing clouds, potential showers to the west-southwest, and crosswinds at the shuttle landing facility. Lindsay is assessing that weather in the event Atlantis has to perform a return to launch site abort. At the time of Atlantis' launch, the International Space Station will be orbiting to the southwest of Perth, Australia. Atlantis' launch timed out to match the moment when the Earth's rotation carries Launch Pad 39A into the corridor or plane of the station's orbit. Down the hall from the shuttle flight control room, another team of flight controllers is on duty in the International Space Station flight control room, led by Flight Director Annette Hasbrook, as they watch over the activities of the Expedition 16 crew. Commander Peggy Whitson and Flight Engineer Yuri Malenchenko are in their 121st day in space since their launch October 10th in a Soyuz rocket from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. They arrived on the station October 12th to begin their half-year on the complex. Flight Engineer Dan Tawney was delivered to the station on the last shuttle flight in October. Today is his 107th day in space, his 105th day on the complex. About 4.5 hours ago, a Russian Progress resupply ship docked to the Pier's docking compartment, delivering 2.5 tons of food, fuel, and supplies for the station crew, setting the stage for Atlantis' launch. Shuttle flight controllers here in Houston are watching those weather conditions at the overseas abort sites in Spain and France, which would be used in the event of an engine failure early in Atlantis' climb to orbit. Zaragoza, Spain is considered the prime transoceanic abort site today for Atlantis and its crew. At launch, Atlantis will be sent aloft on the collective power of its 3 liquid fuel main engines and its twin solid rocket boosters, combining for 7 million pounds of thrust. About 30 seconds into the flight following the roll maneuver, the computers will throttle the main engines down to 72% of rated performance, designed to lessen the aerodynamic forces on the shuttle's fuel tank and the orbiter's aero surfaces. Those engines will throttle back up to 104% of capability about 40 seconds later. Shortly after solid rocket booster separation, the orbital maneuvering system engines will ignite for 2 minutes, providing an assist for the shuttle as it heads uphill. Less than 6 minutes into the flight, the onboard computers will command the shuttle's main engines to swivel, allowing Atlantis to roll to a heads-up position above its fuel tank during ascent. That maneuver allows Atlantis to gain more favorable communications with the tracking and data relay satellite system. About 8.5 minutes after launch, the main engines will be commanded to shut off and the shuttle will separate from the fuel tank. Atlantis will settle into an elliptical orbit about 140 statute miles above the Earth at its apogee, which will be refined to a higher elliptical orbit above the Earth about 45 minutes into the flight through a firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines. Additional rendezvous maneuvers will be executed over the course of the next 2 days, bringing Atlantis to a docking with the International Space Station on Saturday. Seconds after discarding the fuel tank, Commander Steve Frick will maneuver Atlantis so that video and digital cameras in the shuttle's umbilical well can capture imagery of the tank as it falls away. Also at that time, Mission Specialist Leland Melvin will be operating a video camera, and Hans Schlegel will be operating a digital still camera to capture handheld imagery of the fuel tank for downlink and analysis by imagery teams here in Mission Control. The 7 crew members will go to work shortly after the shuttle's payload bay doors are open, activating systems, unstowing gear, and preparing for their first 8-hour sleep period in orbit, which will begin just before 8 p.m. Central Time tonight. A footnote: 7 years ago today, Atlantis launched on the STS-98 mission to deliver the last science lab to the station, the U.S. Destiny Laboratory. It is hoped history repeats itself today with the launch of Columbus. Again, the Ascent team and Flight Director Norm Knight set to take over control of the 29th flight of Atlantis and the 121st mission in shuttle program history at solid rocket booster ignition. At T-minus 9 minutes and holding, this is Mission Control Houston.
Back at Kennedy Space Center now from Firing Room 4 of the Launch Control Center. We have 34 minutes, 30 seconds remaining in this planned built-in hold, 40-minute hold at T-minus 9 minutes. Right now we're no-go based on return to launch site weather. We are watching a thunderstorm developing off to the west, about 45 miles west of Kennedy Space Center, and we're hoping that that will move to the northeast and skirt us outside the 20-mile circle that we're concerned about, although any anvil tops that blow off this direction would certainly be a constraint to launch in any event. So we'll just have to keep an eye on that. We still have more than 45 minutes before launch is scheduled to occur. Still targeting 2:45. We're going to look now at some video of what we did to get Space Shuttle Atlantis ready for a launch attempt today.
Go MPS. Yeah, I can give you 1109.
That began with the external tank arriving on the barge on September 14th, 2007. Tank coming from the Lockheed Martin facilities at Michoud in Louisiana near New Orleans. Tank was offloaded from the barge and then transported over to the vehicle assembly building. Once in the transfer aisle, it was then rotated to vertical so that it could be moved into a checkout cell. And there's the tank in the cell. This is an inspection of the solid rocket boosters. Looking inside the booster, looking at the grain of the solid propellant inside for consistency or any observable flaws. This is the forward frustrum containing the parachute being lifted to the top of the solid rocket booster. And then the external tank was brought over to be mated to the twin SRBs. Orbiter rollover from the orbiter processing facility to the vehicle assembly building occurred on November 3rd, 2007.
was to provide some protection for it. Okay, yeah, I was wondering when it happened. Okay, and I know we have other cameras.
And then the orbiter entered the vehicle assembly building where the lifting sling would be attached so that it could then be rotated to vertical and hoisted for mating to the external tank and solid rocket booster stack. This occurred on November 4th of last year. Once Atlantis was mated and the shuttle interface test was performed to verify the complete interface of all of the connections, both electrical and mechanical, to verify that the orbiter and the external tank and solid rocket boosters were working together as an integrated unit. Then the preparations began for the rollout to Pad 39A, which occurred on November the 7th, 2007. The crawler transporter moving out to the launch pad at 1 mile an hour. The rollout occurring in the overnight hours, darkness hours, and the shuttle was en route to the pad when sunrise occurred. Atlantis now ready to go up the pad ramp, the incline. The hydraulic systems on the crawler transporter keeping Atlantis level as it goes up the incline, goes up the ramp. Once Atlantis was atop the pad, all of the connections were made between the pad and Atlantis on the mobile launcher platform. This is the Columbus Laboratory in the payload bay of Atlantis. These are the payload bay doors being closed for flight. Left-hand door closing first. And then the right-hand door closing. Here we can see the Freon flex hose that needed to be inserted down inside its container. A special device was made by the team to be able to reach in and gradually lower the hose. It had what was called the omega bend, slight bend in shape, which kept it from going down inside the container, and it went inside very easily, and then the doors continued to close for flight. And that brings us to today, where you see Atlantis live on pad 39A.
Do we have any updates to the times we've gotten previously?
No updates.
Very good, thank you. NTD STM. Go ahead. 1072 complete. Thank you.
PLT, OTC. OTC, PLT, go ahead. Clear, caution and warning memory, verify no unexpected errors. Caution and warning clears in work. You can see there's 1100.
Copy that.
PDD, OTC.
PVD.
Verify step 1114.
Verify step 1114, payload bay purge flow rate set for launch.
OTC, PLT, caution and warning memory clears in work. Is complete. Okay, copy. UQC is 1101, 1102.
OTC, TBC, PTC, LPS, MILA, STM, Safety, SPE, LRD, SRO, CDR, and CGLS. Our final launch window opening has been determined. We are going to be launching at the in-plane time,
SRO.
which is 19:45:30. That will be our T0 time. And our launch window will close at 19:50:30 GMT. And we will have a lock stream back hold time of 3 minutes 55 seconds based on performance.
TBC copies.
TBC copies.
STM copies. TLS copies.
PTC copies.
LRD copies.
Safety copies.
LPS copies. CDR copies.
SB copies.
And SRO, you copy? And CGLS NTD, we're looking for a T-9 resume then of 193630.
TLS copies, and that's complete.
Thank you. And SRO NTD. SRO NTD.
SRO.
Yeah, you copied our new launch T0 time?
SRO.
Yes, sir. Did you copy our new launch window opening time? Our T0 time is 19:45:30. You copied? Security console NTD on 212. All right, safety console NTD 212.
Safety console.
Yeah, we verified step 928 over on the other channel.
928 is verified. Copy.
Yeah, non-essential personnel clear of LDA.
Copy.
And OTC, this is Launch Associated Engineering.
OTC.
Yeah, we've been asked to take IPR out on the dog tag that's only single lanyard on the LO2 TSM. It's no constraint to launch per is low weight of the tag below the minimum. So that below the transport threshold.
NTD, anything?
Yeah, I copy. And let's see, launch accessories. Where specifically is this dog tag at in relation to the LO2 TSM? It's on. You look on camera 51. It's hanging off the OBD disconnect upper flexos, and it's mid level of the camera on the camera view, and it's on just dangling from the flexos right now. Okay, let's see. CMQC NTD?
Yes, sir. Next IPR number?
Yes, please.
122 Victor, 0122.
Okay, IPR 0122. And do you have a constraint at this point? Well, it's no constraint to launch because it falls below the threshold for transport threshold. So it'd be next use of MOP for what would be the Hubble mission. I think it's STS-125. Okay, let's see. SPE NTD?
NSP's with you on 212.
Sean, were you aware of this from before?
Yeah, you know, Jeff, I had heard a little bit of a conversation back on 245 when the SCNI folks had gone back and done a little bit of analysis, and we talked about it on 161 as well, and the thought was we did need to go pick up a piece of paper in order to go document it. Now, my initial thought was it's going to get upgraded to a piece of GSE paper. The rationale is going to be that the dog tag, although it is single lanyard attached, is enveloped by the debris analysis that we've already done for rust, and then, of course, you know, the T0 is going to get retracted before T0. So I think the rationale is there, and we'll take and make sure that the launch accessories folks upgrade that.
Okay, and again, we don't see any constraint to launch. This would only be something that we want to go look at potentially post-launch.
Yep, we're going to have to go look at all the LO2 and LS2 TSM dog tag fastening requirements and make sure that they are, in fact, double secured by lanyard safety cable like other dog tag requirements. And we'll do that post-launch.
Okay, I copy that. You have any other questions for launch accessories while they're here?
No, sir. I just need to go ahead and make sure that we're ready to go upgrade that from a tear station perspective, and they've got a wide to go upgrade it to.
All right. Do you want folks on your net for anything?
No, I already talked to them a little bit beforehand. We talked to Charlie on 161 as well, and we got comfortable with it.
All right, very good.
Space Shuttle Atlantis, as it is sitting on the launch pad there,
From back here, we had
weighs 4,523,508 pounds. Once Atlantis lifts off,
you kind of beat me to the punch on taking the IPR. So is it
the
possible?
orbiter itself weighs 267,341 pounds. So of that over 4.5 million pounds, the orbiter with the Columbus Laboratory is only 6% of the total weight.
That's some, sir. I agree.
And once Atlantis comes back for landing and has left the Columbus Laboratory on the space station, it will weigh only 206,212 pounds.
I copy. All right, great.
At the time of launch, the International Space Station will be located 220 miles over the Pacific Ocean, southwest of Perth, Australia.
Houston Flight NTD on 212.
NTD Houston Flight, go ahead.
Okay, let's see. Our PASS and BFS launch target uplinks, do we require those today?
Not required.
Excellent, thank you. PAC console, safety console, step 1057, folks verified back at AB11.
And safety copy 1057. With that, I can give you 1058.
Copy, thank you. And STM 1059 to you. You can terminate that tracking. Copy, 1059. SRO, thank you. SRO NTD?
SRO.
Step 1062, KSC area is clear for launch. SRO, you copy?
NTD Houston Flight 212.
Go flight.
I can give you a 1045 BFS pre-flight uplink load is complete.
Copy. FCP OTC. This is FCP. Yeah, can you verify 1115? You can verify 1115. And NTD SP. Standby 1 SP.
NTD SRO on 212 with the comm check.
SRO, this NTD, I have you loud and clear. Do you copy?
Eastern Range reports the launch area is clear for launch at this time.
STM? Yeah, we're having a little problem with the SRO comm on 212. I got them over on 232, but apparently their comm on 212 so they can't hear us. Copy that. So we can work that from both ends and see what we can do. Copy.
NTD SRO on 212 with the comm check.
SRO, this NTD. SRO, how do you copy?
So launch danger area clear for launch means no
And SPE, NTD, and
boats or aircraft in the area.
NSP's with the NTD.
That
Let's see, Jeff, I owed you,
shower that was developing into a thunderstorm off to our west is moving to the northeast and appears to be dissipating.
And I have that now if you just like it.
Okay, great. Ready to copy.
It's NC025115-01.
All right, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
-18 minutes remaining in his planned built-in hold at T-9.
NTD SRO on 212 with the comm check.
SRO, this is NTD. How copy?
I copy loud and clear. How me?
I have you the same. All right, apparently we got our issue resolved.
The chairman of the mission management team, Leroy Kane, is now polling his team for a go for launch.
CHGD OTC.
HDD.
Yeah, can you verify 1134?
That's still in work.
All team members on the mission management team report that as far as the Space Shuttle Atlantis' readiness to fly, it is ready. "14 minutes remaining in this 40-minute hold at T-9. Once we come out of the hold, the ground launch sequencer will be controlling. We'll do a check of our eco sensors before we come out of the hold at T-9, and we have a final look at them at T-5. 10 minutes remaining in the hold.
OTC, CHPD.
At HCD.
I can give you step 1134, confidence checks complete.
Okay, copy that.
Coming up now on 7 minutes remaining in this hold. We should be getting our final goes to pick up the count momentarily.
CISL, JRPS, and Houston Flight, perform the L-15 recorder activation. ISL? ISL copy. JRPS? JRPS copies. And Houston Flight?
Houston Flight copies. We'll put it in work.
MS-1, OTC.
MS-1, go ahead.
We'll give you a go to activate the V10 recorder.
Then work, and the V10 recorder is activated.
QC 1117.
Copy.
Attention all personnel, this is the NTD conducting the launch status check. Verify ready to resume count and go for launch. OTC?
OTC is go.
TBC?
TBC is go.
PTC?
PTC is go.
LPS?
LPS is go.
Houston flight?
Houston flight is go.
Mila? Mila? Mila, need you to verify ready to resume count and go for launch. STM?
STM's go.
Safety console?
Safety consoles go.
SPE?
SP is go.
LRD?
LRD is go.
SRO?
SRO is go. You have a range clear to launch.
And CDR? Mila, go.
CDR is go.
Copy CDR. And Mila, I copy your go.
Mila's go on 212.
And I copy Mila, thank you. Launch Director, NTD, our launch team is now ready to proceed.
And NTD, this is Launch Director, I copy. I'll conduct my poll at this time. Chief Engineer, verify ready to resume count and go for launch. Is your team's go, Doug? Copy, Charlie, thank you. Shuttle, safety and mission assurance.
KSC safety and mission assurance is go, Doug.
Copy. Payload launch manager.
Hey, Doug, on behalf of our partners from the European Space Agency, the ISS team is ready to proceed.
Copy. And range weather.
Weather has no constraints for launch.
I copy, very good. And ops manager, the launch and flight teams are ready to resume count.
Okay. Launch Director, Ops Manager, Doug, the MMT is not working any issues. It looks like a really good day to go fly. You are go to launch.
Okay, I copy that. And Atlantis, Launch Director.
Launch Director Atlantis, go ahead, Doug.
Well, Steve, for you and your crew, Atlantis is ready to fly. All systems are go. In an effort that has spanned from 1 year to the next, teams from around the globe, both on Earth and in space, have overcome many obstacles to get us to this point. So on behalf of all of them, I'd like to wish you a successful mission and safe return.
Thanks very much, Doug. From the crew, we know the Columbus module's been many years in the making, and we're looking forward to doing our part to bring it up to Peggy Whitson and her crew on the International Space Station and start its good work and many, many years of science. We appreciate your team and all the folks in the shuttle program that have worked so hard over the last couple of months to get the low-level cutoff sensors working. And it looks like, based on today, they're working great. We really appreciate them fixing that problem. We're looking forward to a great flight and coming back to see our families in 2 weeks. I know it's been a hard road for them, especially with the slip, but it looks like today's a good day and we're ready to go fly.
Okay, very good. And again, best of luck up there. NTD Launch Director.
Go ahead.
Okay, you are clear to resume the count and launch Atlantis.
Copy, thank you.
NTD ISL.
Go ISL.
Recorder activation complete.
Thank you. And for all personnel, the countdown clock will resume in 1 minute, 20 seconds.
Ecosystem low-level sensor check has been performed. It is complete, and the sensors are go for launch. We are 4 for 4 on Ecos.
And our countdown clock will resume in 30 seconds.
$15 seconds to resume the count. 10 seconds.
Countdown clock will resume on my mark.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. T-minus 9 minutes and counting.
9 minutes and counting.
Ground launch sequencer now controlling. Automatic sequence has been initiated. Ground launch sequencer will hand off to Atlantis' onboard computers at 31 seconds. We have an optional place to hold at T-minus 5 if necessary. The ground launch sequencer will be checking over 1,000 different parameters between now and that handshake between Atlantis at T-minus 31.
PLT, OTC, connect to central buses to fuel cells per your checklist. OTC, PLT, that's the one.
We'll begin.
PLT, essential buses are connected. Copy.
We'll begin retracting the orbiter access arm here in just a few seconds, in about 15 seconds. Three fuel cells are good.
VLS is go for orbiter access arm retract.
Atlantis, OTC. Like Columbus before you, you've braved adversity. We wish you smooth sailing to the new world among the stars. Thanks very much, Jerry. We're looking forward to a great flight.
That was orbiter test conductor Jerry Goodson. Pilot will be told to start the pre-start for the EPUs at T-minus 6 minutes, 15 seconds.
JRPS OTC, start APU display recorders. JRPS, APU display recorders are running. PLT, OTC, perform APU pre-start. OTC, PLT, APU pre-starts at work.
Another minute, we'll be terminating the liquid oxygen replenish and starting the LOX drain back.
OTC, PLT, APU pre-start is complete. Copy that.
VLS is go for orbiter APU start.
PLT, OTC, perform APU start. OTC, PLT, APU starts in work. CDR, OTC, reconfigure heaters. Heater reconfig is in work.
LOX drain back started right on time.
OTC, PLT, APU start is complete. Heater reconfig is complete. Copy.
GLS is go for purge sequence 4.
Main engines now being steered through their final checks. Final steering check before main engine ignition. Flight controls have also been checked out and are a go for launch. Main engines are in the start position.
GLS is go for ET LO2 pressurization.
PLT, OTC, clear caution and warning memory, verify no unexpected errors.
OTC, PLT, that's smart.
Atlantis, OTC, close and lock your visors, initiate O2 flow.
Atlantis copies, visors in O2, and caution and warning was cleared, no unexpected errors.
Do that.
T-minus 2 minutes. 2 minutes to launch of Atlantis with a Columbus laboratory.
GLS is go for ET LH2 pressurization.
T
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Three main engines of Atlantis reported ready to start. T-minus 1 minute. 1 minute and counting. T-minus 45 seconds. T-minus 31 seconds. Handoff to Atlantis' onboard computers has occurred. $15 seconds. Range safety systems armed. Sound suppression system water activated. T-minus 10, 9, 8. Go for main engine start. 7, 6. Main engine ignition. 4, 3, 2, 0, and liftoff of Space Shuttle Atlantis as Columbus sets sail on a voyage of science to the space station.
Houston now controlling.
Roger, roll, Atlantis.
Columbus weighs anchor from its port in Florida. Atlantis on the proper alignment, heads down, wings level for the 8.5-minute ride to orbit, taking aim on the International Space Station for docking on Saturday. 28 seconds into the flight. The 3 liquid fuel main engines soon will throttle back to 72% of rated performance, going in the bucket, reducing the stress on the shuttle as it breaks through the sound barrier. Atlantis 3 miles in altitude, 7 miles downrange. 50 seconds into the flight. The engine's beginning to throttle back up, standing by for that call from Capcom Jim Dutton.
Atlantis, go at throttle up.
Atlantis copies, go at throttle up.
The throttle up call acknowledged by Commander Steve Frick, joined on the flight deck by Pilot Alan Poindexter, Rex Walheim, and Leland Melvin. Seated down on the middeck are Stan Love and Hans Schlegel and Leopold Aarts of the European Space Agency. Aarts hitching a ride to his new home on the International Space Station. 1 minute, 30 seconds into the flight. Atlantis already 15 miles in altitude, 16 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, traveling 2,000 miles an hour. Three good main engines, 3 good fuel cells, 3 auxiliary power units, all functioning normally. Standing by for solid rocket booster separation. Booster officer confirms a good solid rocket booster separation, good staging. Guidance now converging, the onboard computers commanding the main engines to swivel, aiming Atlantis for its precise keyhole in space for main engine cutoff. And the propulsion officer reports the orbital maneuvering system engines have ignited, providing Atlantis with that extra burst of power for the next 2 minutes, assisting the shuttle and its crew on their climb to orbit. 2 minutes, 40 seconds into the flight. Atlantis 41 miles in altitude.
2 engine towel.
Atlantis copies, 2 engine towel.
That call from Capcom Jim Dutton to the crew indicating that if we lost 1 main engine right now, we would have enough energy to reach our transoceanic abort sites, but we have 3 solid main engines along with the auxiliary power units and the fuel cells. At the 3-minute mark into the flight, Atlantis 47 miles in altitude, 87 miles downrange, traveling almost 4,000 miles an hour. Atlantis flying on the singular power of its 3 liquid fuel main engines, draining a half a ton of fuel per second from the fuel tank. Coming up shortly on the point of negative return, where the shuttle will be too far downrange, too high in altitude to return to the launch site in the event of an engine failure, but we're flying on 3 solid main engines right now. Three minutes, 40 seconds into the flight, Atlantis 127 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, approaching the 5,000 mile an hour mark.
Atlantis, negative return.
Atlantis copies, negative return.
And the Environmental Systems Officer in Mission Control reports a good flash evaporator system providing cooling for Atlantis' avionics until the time we open the payload bay doors an hour and a half into the flight. 4 minutes, 15 seconds. 62 miles in altitude, 176 miles downrange, traveling 5,500 miles an hour. Atlantis flying straight as an arrow, speeding toward a date with the International Space Station on Saturday. With all systems looking very good, Atlantis approaching the 5-minute mark into the flight, 65 miles in altitude, 230 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, traveling 6,500 miles an hour, all systems in good shape.
Atlantis, press to ATO.
Press to ATO.
That call indicating should we lose an engine, we can make our minimal orbital cutoff targets. However, all 3 main engines continue to perform normally. 3 good auxiliary power units, 3 good fuel cells. 5.5 minutes into the flight. Atlantis 8,000 miles an hour in its velocity, 67 miles in altitude, 310 miles downrange from the Cape.
Atlantis, single engine ops 3.
Atlantis copies, single engine ops 3.
Beginning to roll to a heads-up position now. Atlantis' computers commanding the main engines to swivel, Rolling to the heads-up position provides Atlantis with more favorable communications through the tracking and data relay satellite system heading toward orbit.
Atlantis, single engine Zaragoza 104.
Single engine Zaragoza 104.
Atlantis, press to MECO.
Press to MECO.
That call from Capcom Jim Dutton to Commander Steve Frick indicating that should we lose a main engine now, we have enough velocity to reach nominal orbital cutoff targets. However, we're flying on 3 good main engines. All the other systems in good shape as well.
Your shutdown plan is nominal. You are go for the plus X, go for the pitch.
Copy. Atlantis copies nominal shutdown plan. Go for the plus X, go for the pitch.
Less than 2 minutes of powered flight remaining. Atlantis now 498 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center, traveling 11,000 miles an hour. About...
Atlantis, single engine press 104.
Atlantis copies. Single engine press 104.
About 20 seconds from now, the main engines will once again be throttled down to limit the stress on the shuttle and its 7 crew members to that of 3 times the effect of gravity. Atlantis currently traveling at a speed of about 4 miles a second. Main engines now being throttled back. 7 minutes, 40 seconds into the flight. Atlantis now traveling 14,000 miles an hour, 675 miles downrange from the Kennedy Space Center. As Atlantis enters its preliminary orbit, it will do so at a velocity of 17,500 miles an hour. 20 seconds of powered flight remaining. Booster officer confirms main engine cutoff, now standing by for the commands for external tank separation.
Atlantis, no action on the cabin DPDT at Seducer.
Copy, no action.
Spectacular view of Atlantis separating from its external tank. Atlantis now in its preliminary orbit. The Columbus module, Europe's new science center in space.
Nominal MECO, OHMS 1 is not required.
Nominal MECO, OHMS 1 not required. Thanks, MASH.
Commander Steve Frick now maneuvering Atlantis to the correct orientation so that video and digital stills of the fuel tank can be captured by cameras embedded in the shuttle's umbilical well for post-flight analysis. A smooth and uneventful ascent. Atlantis now in its preliminary orbit, the Columbus Science Module headed to the International Space Station. This is Mission Control in Houston, 11 minutes following Atlantis' launch from the Kennedy Space Center. Here in the Shuttle Flight Control Room, Flight Director Norm Knight, with the assistance of Flight Director Richard Jones, who was the Weather Flight Director, working all of the weather issues associated with today's countdown. Joined on console on the left side of your screen by Jim Dutton in the gray shirt, the Capcom talking directly to the crew, and Terry Virts, who talked directly with Chief Astronaut Steve Lindsay down at the Kennedy Space Center as he flew the shuttle training aircraft in the vicinity of the shuttle landing facility to assess weather conditions. Standing behind them, astronaut George Zamka, who is the pilot of the shuttle Discovery on the shuttle's last launch to the International Space Station back in October. Guidance, Navigation, and Control Officer reports that Atlantis has completed its pitch maneuver. That provides the most favorable orientation for cameras in the umbilical well to shoot imagery of the external tank as it separates from Atlantis. Leland Melvin operating a video camera and Hans Schlegel operating a digital still camera will also capture imagery of that fuel tank for downlink to imagery specialists here in Mission Control, while the shuttle is at a distance of about 1,500 feet away from the fuel tank. Residual fuel from the main propulsion system has now been dumped from the orbiter. That provides it with the correct weight for its time on orbit for this scheduled 11-day mission that could be extended to a 12th day pending consumable capability and the requirements of the International Space Station. A smooth ascent for Atlantis following a flawless countdown. The only issue that was worked throughout the course of the day was the weather at the Kennedy Space Center, which cooperated nicely. 7 years ago today, the shuttle Discovery the shuttle Atlantis was launched to deliver the U.S. Destiny laboratory to the International Space Station. Today, Columbus sets sail to join Destiny, soon to be joined by the Japanese Kibo modules.
Atlantis, Houston, you are a go for APU hide shutdown on time. For page 3-4 in the white pages, tail-only control is not required. The rest of that page through page 3-7 will take as written.
Okay, we copy. We're go for APU hide shutdown on time, tail-only control not required, and the rest of that page is as written. Thanks.
Good readback, Steve, and you're also go for 3-5 through 3-7. Your preliminary OMS 2 TIG is 37:40 with onboard targets, and I have a story for you on the cabin DPDT sensor when you're ready.
Okay, copy. 3740 for the OMS 2 TIG, and go for the next 3 pages, and we'll call you back in a little while for the story on the backup DPDT.
Sounds good.
The crew on board Atlantis now going through its post-insertion procedures, preparing to shut down the 3 auxiliary power units. They won't be needed again until the day before Atlantis' landing, when all of the aero surfaces and all of the flight control systems are checked out aboard the orbiter. We're about 21 minutes away from the first firing of the orbital maneuvering system engines. That will raise the apogee of Atlantis' orbit and continue its path en route to the International Space Station for docking late Saturday morning.
Atlantis, Houston, in 1 minute, we'll be unable to speak to you for 1 minute due to spreading.
Atlantis, copy, spreading.
This is Mission Control Houston. This view in the International Space Station Flight Control Room, where Flight Director Annette Hasbrook is on console, as she has been since she took her handover this morning at about 7 o'clock Central Time. Dan Tawney's ride home following his extended stay aboard the station is finally en route, as European Space Agency astronaut Leopold Aerts is in transit to replace Tawney aboard the station. Aerts will spend the majority of his time aboard the International Space Station working on the commissioning of the Columbus module once it's installed on the starboard side of the Harmony connecting node. This is Mission Control in Houston.
Atlantis, Houston, we like the load and your go to maneuver on time.
Okay, we'll load the targets and maneuver on time.
Commander Steve Frick acknowledging the call from Capcom Jim Dutton as he loads on to the onboard computers, all the parameters.
For booster, if you're ready, we'll work page 3S.
Frick loading into the onboard computers the parameters for the maneuver that will place Atlantis in the correct orientation for the first burn of the orbital maneuvering system engines to raise Atlantis' orbit and continue its path toward the International Space Station. With that, let's go down now back to the Kennedy Space Center, Atlantis' launch site, for a variety of launch replays of Atlantis' liftoff today.
Atlantis, we think we're complete on page 3-6, and if Max is ready, we'll pick up on 3-7.
We concur on 3-6, and we're ready for ET doors, Dex.
Copy, ET door closures in work.
This is Mission Control Houston as you watch the replays of Atlantis' launch that occurred 25 minutes ago from the Kennedy Space Center.
Houston, Atlantis, we're complete on page 3-7, and we're moving on to 3-8.
Copy, Atlantis. We'll be watching.
Again, as you watch the replays of Atlantis' launch, the post-launch news conference down at the Kennedy Space Center will air at about 2:45 p.m. Central Time, 3:45 Eastern Time. That will feature NASA Administrator Mike Griffin, Jean-Jacques Dordain, ESA's Director General, Bill Gerstenmaier, the Associate Administrator for Space Operations at NASA Headquarters, Leroy Kane, the Chairman of the Mission Management Team, and the Launch Integration Manager down at the Kennedy Space Center, and today's Launch Director for STS-122, Doug Lyons. Again, the post-launch news conference to air on NASA TV out of the Kennedy Space Center at about 2:45 p.m. Central Time, 3:45 Eastern.